Hey guys, welcome to Traditional Bow Hunting Wilderness Podcast. This is Jason Samkovic. Today we're going to be talking about broadheads, and we're going to kind of compare 2-blade, 3-blade, and 4-blade and see what's going to be best for you. And there is no one better than the other. There's pros and cons to each, but we're going to take a look at some of these on a level that most of you guys may not have known about or dove into as deep. But basically, when it comes to 2-blade, you have a 2-blade, that cut is a straight line cut that you're going to have in that animal. With a 3-blade, you get a traditional Y-shaped cut. That's that entry where those blades cut into that animal and come out the other side. With a 4-blade, usually on a 4-blade, the 2 bleeder blades are a little bit smaller, so you have kind of this cross-type setup with 2 blades being a little bit smaller. That's your 2, 3, and 4 blade styles. That's that wound that's going to be on there. So let's talk about some of these key differences and features when it comes to these different types of broadheads. Now, first one, the big one, where everybody jumps into and is automatically concerned with, is going to be a blood trail. What's going to give you the better blood trail? It's a tricky one to actually answer. Typically, a 3-blade or a 4-blade, because of the fact that you'll have flaps of skin here, this will be a flap, this will be a flap, and this part will be a flap. Here you're going to have 4 flaps that will fold open and let more blood come out. So rather than just a straight slice cut of a 2-blade, you would believe, and technically speaking, these should give you a better blood trail. And often they do. A 3 and a 4-blade will give you a fantastic blood trail. But there are times where that open design, that big opening flaps of that, will also let things get in there and clog that hole up, whether it's parts of diaphragm or organs or pieces of lung tissue, liver, whatever it is. On a gut shot, it's pretty notorious for intestines to come poking out through those holes and actually cause that to be a clogged hole now where no blood can come out of there. So it goes all different ways, but typically speaking, you will get better blood trails with a 3 and a 4-blade broadhead than you will with a 2-blade. But I've used 2 blades pretty much my entire life. I've never had a problem with them. So that difference, like I said, either way, I know I have a lot of buddies that shoot 3 blades, and then I got a couple friends that still shoot 4 blades. And I'm with these guys on a lot of these trailing jobs. And so I see the blood trails that are coming out of them. In a perfect world, the 3 and the 4-blade will give a little bit better blood trail. In a perfect world. Now, the perfect world is not always the case. So that can go either direction. I have seen it, like I said, where I've seen these clog up way more often than I've seen a 2-blade hole clog up with other parts from inside the animal. So it is something that you need to consider. But realistically, they're all pretty even right in there. Like I said, there's pros and cons to all of these, but these are things to think about. So blood trail wise, like I said, they're all pretty even in my opinion, but the edge would go to the 3 and the 4-blade in a perfect world. 2-blade, like I said, if you're shooting that, don't think that you're not getting good blood trails. And there are bigger, wider, smaller, narrower 2-blades. There's a debate to everything. But the key thing, if you put that arrow where it's supposed to go, it's going to do its job and it's going to get it done. Some of these other things kind of come into play more. Now with that wound shape, I'm going to bounce around a little bit on here. With that wound shape, one thing I do like about a 2-blade head is on superficial hits. And I know everybody thinks, well, I'm never going to have one of those. Well, it does happen. You end up dropping it low and passing one through the leg. Or just through the brisket underneath and you're just cutting the hide, or through the back straps on the top, or you go through the neck, or who knows what can happen, but things happen sometimes. When that happens, I personally believe a 2-blade cut is going to heal much faster. It's just a simple cut like this. And what will happen is that it'll reseal itself very good and very easy, and that animal will heal much quicker and simpler from a 2-blade cut rather than having 3 individual flaps of skin that are all over that have to somehow come back together and piece in to be healed, or 4 flaps that have to come together in order for that wound to heal. So in my opinion, when it comes to superficial hits, the wound shape of a 2-blade is going to be a much more humane head to use. Not that we're trying to have superficial hits, In that same defense, when it comes to wound shape, if you happen to shoot, let's say that you are a 1/4 inch away from hitting, let's say that you're a 1/4 inch high from hitting the lungs on that deer, and that shoots through there. If that broadhead comes through and it goes that 2-blade and it comes in sideways like that, here's that lung, and it comes in and goes right over top of that like that, and you don't hit those lungs, you're not going to recover that animal. Where with a 3-blade design, you might come over, but you got 3 blades. So there's another one that would actually end up kidding that and taking those lungs out. The same with a 4-blade. You might get the same effect. So that wound shape has variations of importance to you. You know, I mean, as far as wound recovery rates for superficial hits, the 2-blade's going to be better. But on the same note, what might have been superficial for a 2-blade might have actually been a deadly hit with a 3 or 4-blade. So pros and cons to each of them. There is no winning situation in there. You know, it's either one. Different options for them. Now, when it comes to pass-throughs, this is one that I've killed a lot of animals, and I've been part of a lot of animal blood trails, and this one is something that I think is way more important than people think of. See, people think I want to pass through because they want to get that exit on the other side so they have a blood trail coming out of both sides of that animal. I understand that. Yes, that makes it a lot easier. Is that my concern with pass-through? Not even a little bit. I could care less about that. I'm going to find that animal. If I hit him right, it's going to be blood coming out of one side, blood coming out of the mouth. I'm going to find that. So the pass-through option is not necessarily about the blood trail. It does help, don't get me wrong. But the key thing that a lot of people don't know about is two scenarios. One, we're going to talk about a deer that you hit and the arrow stays in that animal. Second one, a deer that hit and the arrow passes through. What I find, this is like 90% true for both scenarios, and that is that if the arrow does not pass through, that arrow stays in that animal will be afraid of that arrow that's in him. He knows it's there, and he is going to run, and it is gonna bother him. He's going to have that arrow there. He's going to feel it hitting on trees and branches as he goes. And it's going to keep him spooked, and he's going to keep moving. Very few times, not that it doesn't ever happen, but very few times have I had an arrow go into an animal and stay there. Say it goes in and hits the other shoulder on the opposite side. That arrow stays in that body, in that animal. Very seldom have I seen them stop and actually analyze the situation or do something. Usually they just keep going and going and going. Now the first deer I ever killed with a recurve, I shot, and it was on a 12-yard shot, came in, I drew back, boom, I shot, and that arrow went right, came in the top of this lung, and then stuck in the leg on the other side, and that deer took 2 steps, and he was actually bouncing her face off of that arrow that was on there as she was looking around, banging her head on my shaft that was sticking out of there. But that was an exception to the rule. She was right there. She died like 15 yards from where I shot her from. But that's a rare exception. Usually if the arrow stays in the body cavity and doesn't pass through, that deer is going to cover a tremendous amount of ground. And if that happens, you have a much harder time finding them. Every yard further away from you they go is that much more complicated for you to recover that animal. So not having a pass through is not always, you want to pass through, in my opinion. More so for the blood trail, but also because now if you take that other deer, that arrow zips through, boom, boom, and goes right in and right out. I can't tell you how many times I'll have a deer standing there and he'll come through eating acorns and stuff, and I'll shoot him, and that arrow will go through him, and they'll take a quick hop, and they'll stop, and they'll look around like this, and it's game over. They'll fall over right there. If I pass an arrow through an animal, 9 times out of 10, I will watch that animal go down. And also, probably 6 or 7 times out of 10, if I don't take out a shoulder on the other side, that deer will actually stop and stand there somewhere. He may go 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards, but he will actually stop and look around and analyze the situation because the threat is gone. The noise is gone. Whatever it was that bumped him is gone. He doesn't have nerves on his internal organs. He doesn't feel that cut like we would or imagine that. And he doesn't know what just happened. So he's going to get to safety or out of that immediate danger zone and stop and analyze the situation. If that arrow did not pass through, that most likely will not happen. He will keep running from the arrow that's in his body. So that is something to consider. Typically speaking, a 2-blade broadhead will do a much better job of passing through an animal. Now, with that said, because you have less resistance for a 2-blade versus a 3 or versus a 4-blade, common sense. But on whitetail, on deer, on things that we're normally hunting, 3-blade, 2-blade, 4-blade doesn't make any difference. Most of them are going through until you encounter bone. When you encounter bone, 3-blade is at a major disadvantage over a 2-blade. 4 blade is at a major disadvantage over a 2 blade. 4 blade is at a disadvantage over a 3 blade. Okay, the more blades you have, the harder it is to get through bone. So now ribs are usually never an issue. Shoulder blades, trying to get through them with a 3 blade or a 4 blade, very difficult to do. Trying to do that with a 2 blade, difficult but not impossible, depending on your power stroke or your draw length and the boundage you're shooting and the arrow setup you're using, amount of FOC, all these variables that come into play. But generally speaking, a 2 blade will have better penetration, giving you better options of getting through bone to get that pass through that you want to have happen so that that animal goes down in sight. So that's something to consider. Not that these are not good, because they will give you a better blood trail, typically speaking, and they will do their job well. So again, there is no winner anywhere in here, but when it comes to dealing with bone, a 2 blade definitely has an advantage over the other ones. When it comes to tuning, people will tell you, well, the more blades you have, the harder it is to tune. I don't buy that 1 second. A 3 blade head is usually vented, and if they're vented, they're going to have less wind resistance than a 2 blade. So I honestly believe the 3 blades are probably sometimes easier to tune than a 2 blade head is. If you're building your arrows right, none of that matters, and a tuning will be an easy thing to accomplish. Okay, so you make your arrows right, bare shaft tune them, and none of that stuff will be an issue. So that's a dead, irrelevant, makes no difference in any of this stuff. Same with the 4 blades. The bleeder blades are small. There's not enough resistance to that to make much difference, so I think they all even out pretty well when it comes to tuning. Now sharpening is a big factor. One of it's one of the upper end reasons I shoot a 2 blade broadhead. Very easy and quick to sharpen a 2 blade. A 4 blade, kind of a pain in the butt. You got to get the bleeders out of the way, or you really got to get creative to get around the bleeder blades to sharpen a 4 blade broadhead. And there's 4 extra blades if you're not using already pre-sharpened bleeders. If you're trying to touch them up, it just takes a little more time. I shot 4 blades for many years. Magnus heads with the bleeders in them, and they're not bad, especially if you can take the bleeder out, sharpen the 2 blade, sharpen the bleeder, and then put the bleeder blade back in. So those are not bad. 3 blades are not bad either. They're a little more complicated, and you do have an extra blade, but because of the design of them, you can almost lay them right flat on a file, or you can buy these jigs with the files that are already set and just push them right down there and sharpen them, and they're not that much more complicated. So, as you can see by this stuff, it doesn't matter if you're shooting a 2 blade, a 3 blade, a 4 blade. It's find what one you like. It's find what preference you like. Find what matters more to you. Is the better blood trail a more important thing than maybe a 3 or 4 blades a better way to go? Is the pass through and having that animal go down where you can see it more commonly, is that more important to you than maybe a 2 blades the way to go? Are you concerned with bone, shooting a lower poundage bow, setting something up for your kids or your spouse is shooting a lower poundage bow and need more penetration? That 2 blade is going to fit that bill better. A 2 blade will penetrate better than a 3 or a 4. Again, less resistance. Whether it's bone or not bone, it's going to penetrate better. For most of you listening to this, again, with the exception of bone hits, mainly being shoulder bones or spine, things like that, you're going to have better odds. That's another one I didn't even think about to mention. On a spine hit, everybody seems to think, not everybody, but a lot of people think that if you hit the spine, then you drop that animal. There is so much spine there that is irrelevant when you hit it. Okay, I mean, you have vertebrae sticking up, you have all this stuff. If you don't actually get to that spinal cord, that column in there, and take out that nervous system, and take out those receptors in there, you're not dropping that animal with a spine shot. If I had a nickel, that's actually a horrible way of saying it. Let's just say that I've probably seen maybe 10 or 12, somewhere around a dozen times that I've seen people that have spine shot animals where that arrow, boom, and sticks right there, and it's not actually a spine shot. It does not drop that animal. Or that animal will drop, hit the ground for a second, roll over, get up, and then take back off. And it ends up being a non-lethal, a superficial wound. It's because of the fact that you have to hit that spine right for that to happen. A 2 blade can get through that stuff and usually do pretty good on that spine. But a 3 blade or 4 blade also gives you more options depending on the angle of that hit or where you hit on there to be able to actually cut and sever that spinal column and a nervous system that runs through there and put that animal down on the ground. So again, as you see, There is no right answer. There is no what's better than the other. There is no best one to use. This is not a, there's a reason that we have a lot of 2-blade, 3-blade, 4-blade combinations out there. It is whatever one that you want to use, whatever you're most comfortable with, what you like best, and what fits your needs best. There is no win-win here. There is. The win-win is that every one of them, 2, 4, 3, doesn't make any difference. They're all incredible broadheads. And they're going to do exactly what they're designed to do and make it happen. The key thing that I did not put on here, the only one that matters on this whole thing is that they are sharp. Okay? If they are sharp, that's going to... Actually, I should probably spell that right and put the R in there. But if they are sharp heads... That's what matters for you. If they're not sharp, it's irrelevant. Those arteries and those organs will actually, as your arrow goes in, they will roll right out of the way. They will just go and roll right over that head. That's bad. If it's sharp, that's going to sever that and split it and cause the damage that you want. So this is the only thing that matters. Whether it's 2-blade, 3-blade, 4-blade, irrelevant. As long as it is a sharp head, it's going to do exactly what you want. I have videos too. I haven't done this in a while, but they give me a feature to put videos at the end of this. Maybe if I remember on the end of this, I'll link a couple sharpening videos for you on there, and how to do the rubber band test and stuff like that, so that you know that they're sharp. Because this is all that matters. The rest of it, as you can see, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. There is no right or wrong answer to it. Pick whatever head that you like and whatever style you like that you're going to be confident with and that you enjoy shooting, and use it, and it's going to work absolutely fantastic. Thanks for watching. Be back with more stuff soon. We'll talk to you later. Bye.